Melanie on.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Apologies, the lobbies are full this evening. I'm absolutely delighted to be able to welcome the Minister to her place, and I'm very pleased to be able to raise these very important issues on behalf of my constituents in Great Grimsby and Cleethorpes, but also for the wider region. The Minister will be aware that the issue of rail and road connectivity to Great Grimsby and Cleethorpes has been a long-standing issue which many before us have tried and failed to resolve. But I am hopeful that we will be able to move things on substantially for the greater well-being and economic benefit of northern Lincolnshire and the Humber generally. She knows that despite being out on the coast, northern Lincolnshire plays a critical part in the nation's energy and fuel generation, being the country's centre of offshore wind operational management and repairs. We produce omega-3 rich food for the country's dinner plates, eco-fibres for our clothes, host the world's largest port by tonnage. We are the hub for new vehicle distribution around the United Kingdom. We are the star coastal beachy getaway. I feel like there may be somebody in the chamber who wants to challenge me on that point at some point. The star coastal beachy getaway for hundreds of thousands of visitors each year, delivering excellent hospitality. We deliver national training in offshore wind and high-skill engineering, and as a thriving and proud footballing town, we draw crowds weekly from all over the country keen to support their team down at Blundell Park. And my point in highlighting all of these activities is to demonstrate the economic importance of the Humber and the South Bank in particular, not only to those locals who benefit from the work and the products, but to the whole country. And we know that being easily able to access places is key to securing additional inward investment, growing economic prosperity for and on behalf of the people who live there. And it dispels some of the sense of being separate or isolated from the rest of the country. Currently, despite the fact that we have a busy dual carriageway linking us to the central spine of the country and regular-ish direct rail services across to Liverpool, that takes 3 hours and 26 minutes via Doncaster, Sheffield and Manchester, and Leicester, that takes 2 hours and 36 minutes via Lincoln and Nottingham, the Minister will be pleased to know, and a brilliant little airport in Kirmington that has flights direct to Schiphol and Aberdeen. We're still considered as hard to access. And in some roadworks or bus replacement service situations, and somewhere add in those two issues, somewhere frankly with better, faster transport links, tips the balance and ends up getting the investment. The current situation, if you are an away fan driving to support your team at Blundell Park, let's say Bradford, there has been a recent match that we're triumphant in, and you're driving down the A180 onto Cleethorpes Road and then onto Grimsby Road, it is an inexplicably loud, juddering journey along a 50-year-old concrete road. There is an urban myth of the road that an American firm were contracted to lay experimental surfacing and rolled it the wrong way so that the friction is higher and more pronounced as the cars drive the opposite way to they do in the States, and so generates much more noise. But really, whatever the history, the fact of the matter is that today, despite some patchy resurfacing in very short stretches, the noise for drivers is so loud that speaking to a passenger sat right next to you is impossible at a normal volume. Hearing travel alerts on the radio is impossible. And I'm convinced that it must be damaging to people's hearing who regularly drive on that road for work, education or leisure purposes. And as for the trains, I mean, I absolutely defy anybody who says that they have not experienced a delay at Doncaster. Usually these come later on in the evening, For more regular travellers, perhaps it is just a roll of the eyes and then settling down in the waiting room to wait for an hour or more for the next connection, or heading outside, as gentlemen for Brigg and Immingham will know, heading outside to join a lengthy queue and eventually clamber into a shared taxi with other fed up and rather confused passengers. For those who don't use trains very often, the lack of information, the lack of updates, the paucity of any assistance with luggage or perhaps mobility struggles really puts them off using the railways, especially when they have paid a premium for the privilege. With most international business travellers flying into London airports, the route between Grimsby and Cleethorpes and London is an absolutely essential one. One of our refineries is owned by the Americans, Lenzing Fabric Company is Austrian, Orsted is Danish, RWE is German, Knauf is also German, Safina is Canadian. All over the world, companies are basing themselves in Grimsby, Cleethorpes and the surrounding northern Lincolnshire area. Sorry, I thought there was somebody behind me there. They are basing themselves in our region. Bringing senior executives to our richly experienced and very active corner of the country is essential, and it is really embarrassing to send them on delayed trains or a two-coach 50-year-old chugger with no modern amenities on it. It is... I'm very happy to give way.
Honourable Member for giving way, and she makes an extraordinarily powerful, important point, because actually Lincolnshire, from the north, where the Honourable Member represents, to the south of Lincolnshire, it is a huge footprint. I would represent that it's not a corner, it's a massive, massive footprint. But trying to get across it, and the government wants to create growth. The key to growth is infrastructure. The government wants to build 1.5 million new homes over the next Parliament. The key to that, of course, is infrastructure, because if you can't get to the new homes, then the house builders won't build them, and they won't build them if we haven't got good road network in Lincolnshire. And in my constituency of Boston and Skegness, we've been talking about a bypass in Boston for so long no one can remember, but it's about 20 years. So I would support the Honourable Member for Grimsby and Cleethorpes to the Minister and say actually the whole of Lincolnshire, north and south, needs extra investment in infrastructure, in road and rail, in order to secure the growth that the government is so keen, quite rightly, to ensure for the nation.
I thank the Honourable Gentleman for his intervention. He does make an important point. Actually, we cannot grow one area of our, I won't say corner again, our patch, our kingdom of Lincolnshire without growing the other, and actually the ability to travel across the county is incredibly important, and I thank him for making that point. Yeah, I'm happy to give way to the gentleman.
Member, and I support her in the motion she has brought this evening, and I think she mentions the kingdom. And what I would say to the Minister as well in bringing this, I think it's important that we look at the entirety of the connectivity of the entire United Kingdom. And the constituency that I represent in South Antrim, there's already been an all-island rail review where both the Northern Ireland Executive and the Irish Government has looked at the opportunity of improving rail links, and one of those is actually moving from Antrim town through to Lisburn and actually connecting the Belfast International Airport via rail. So I know the member is worried about the state of her rail link to the airport that she has in her constituency. I've got the Belfast International Airport in mind with no rail link, so could I ask the government to work with Northern Ireland Executive actually on the all-island rail review to look at how that can be progressed.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I mean, I admire the Honourable Gentleman's ability to get South Antrim into a debate about Northern Lincolnshire, but support his opportunity to be able to do that. But, you know, it is totally unsuitable to have these kind of antiquated amenities. It's no surprise, really, that business people, instead of coming to Grimsby, Cleethorpes, Immingham, will instead go direct from London to Hull, from King's Cross, and as Humber-based businesses, they stay in accommodation there, perhaps with a trip over the Humber Bridge for perhaps half a day. And, you know, that is just not enough for us to be able to showcase ourselves and our whole offering as Northern Lincolnshire. In June this year, my predecessor and my successor, actually for Great Grimsby, announced on social media that a direct train would be up and running by Christmas. And I wonder if the Minister can enlighten us to the background of that assertion, because I've been unable to find much more than a hope from the previous Transport Minister. And I'm concerned that perhaps false hope has been provided to residents in my constituency. I'm conscious of the time. I'm going to give way to my honourable friend for Brigg and Immingham for a few minutes, because I know he's very keen to contribute to this debate. I'd just finish up by saying that, you know, back in 2003, the then MP for Cleethorpes, Shona McIsaac, she had a debate on exactly the same issue, particularly relating to the A180. At that time, there was a 10-year resurfacing road programme in place, promising action between 2002 and 2005. Here we are again. Please, will the Minister assist me in making some progress in this for my constituents? Thank you.
Vickers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I congratulate my honourable friend and neighbour from Great Grimsby and Cleethorpes in securing this debate. It's an important one, and as she knows, it's an issue that I've been campaigning for. Indeed, when she was previously in this House, we held numerous meetings with ministers and the like about this. In actual fact, the new Brigg and Immingham constituency has 11 railway stations, the largest port in the country and an international airport, and yet we are still struggling to get the A180 resurfaced and a direct service train service to London. I was looking this afternoon at when I first raised this matter in the House, and it was in 2011 on a debate about HS2, ironically. But my understanding is from the previous Secretary of State had approved the start of the direct service from Grimsby and had instructed LNER to incorporate it when in their negotiations with Network Rail about the forthcoming winter timetable. And as my honourable friend said, it would be nice if the Minister could actually confirm that that is the case. On the A180, again, it's an issue which has been rumbling, that's perhaps no pun intended, but rumbling on since at least the 14 years that I've been a member of the House. And in 2018, I held a public meeting in Stallingborough Village Hall, and Highways England, I think it was called at that time, and subsequently confirmed in a letter from the Minister, said the resurfacing would commence and be completed during the 2020-21 financial year. The situation, as I understand it at the moment, is that a programme exists to spend £9 million in the current financial year to deal with particularly dangerous stretches, but I'm told now that complete resurfacing from Barnetby Top to Grimsby, which is what really is essential, is now in the £300 million plus category, and will obviously need authority for a major capital project. And very briefly, Madam Deputy Speaker, the couple of other points worth mentioning. The service that runs through Brigg comes from the Sheffield, Gainsborough, Brigg, Cleethorpes train service, which up until fairly recently was 3 services a day, all on a Saturday. It was a 1-day-a-week service. That has now changed to a 5-day-a-week service, but it only gives 90 minutes in either Grimsby, if people want to stop there to do their shopping in Freshney Place, and so they should, or if they want to spend time in Cleethorpes, it gives them a mere 90 minutes to explore the beach and all that Cleethorpes can offer. So let's get something sorted. A regular service on that stretch of line would be greatly appreciated. And my final comment is on the Cleethorpes to Barton service, which is a bit of a Cinderella service. So many cancellations. Timings are not good for commuters who want to use it. It needs a fully restructuring, and I would urge the Minister to have a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. can't allow another speech, but obviously interventions on the Minister, if the Minister chooses to accept them, are permitted. Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I'd like to begin by congratulating my honourable friend, the member for Great Grimsby and Cleethorpes, for securing today's debate. I'd also like to congratulate her on returning to these benches. I know she will represent her constituents wonderfully well, as she always did, and speak so passionately, as we've just seen, about issues in her constituency and across northern Lincolnshire, an area she is rightly proud of and ambitious for. And I'm grateful, Madam Deputy Speaker, for the opportunity to discuss transport in this region today, and indeed perhaps even there were certainly some attempts to broaden it out beyond North Lincolnshire. I understand the desire to talk about Lincolnshire, but perhaps Northern Ireland, which is a devolved matter, I will stay clear of. But I'm impressed at the determination of the honourable member to speak for his constituents. Let me assure my honourable members that this government understands the importance of transport to the people, communities and businesses powering local economies across the country, including the south bank of the Humber, but indeed everywhere across the country. I'll begin with the A180. I'm very aware that my honourable friend and indeed her previous Labour predecessor had previously raised the issue of road noise on this vital road for those travelling to and from her constituency. Assessments of road noise on the A180 have been undertaken by National Highways. These assessments were carried out near Stallingborough, if I hope I've pronounced that correctly, in May 2024, ahead of proposed concrete repairs. The noise levels recorded were between 65.9 and 82 decibels, which I understand is pretty loud for a driver over a sustained journey, but I'm afraid also consistent with the expected amount of noise to be generated given the volume of traffic the A180 supports. The age of the road is also an important consideration here, as wear and tear increases the level of noise generated. That being said, I do fully understand the frustration that can be caused by sustained road noise for both drivers and those living near the road. In the last year, National Highways have carried out 3 road surface improvements on the A180, with a 4th planned to commence this October in just a few weeks' time. These works have and will reduce noise and improve road safety. Now, subject to confirmation of funding, additional surface treatment work is planned for the 3rd roads investment strategy period, and when finished, this should substantially reduce noise levels along the route. These works will be of significant benefit to the lives of my honourable friends' constituents and indeed other honourable members' constituents, both those living close to the A180 and those regularly driving along the road. I completely understand her desire to make the journey to her coastal community as smooth and pleasant as possible, both for her constituents and for those travelling for those very important business journeys that she described. Turning now to the introduction of a direct train to London from Cleethorpes and Grimsby. The benefits of having direct links to the capital are clear. That is why we are working with industry to address timetabling, financial, operational and infrastructure issues that need to be resolved before a service to Cleethorpes can be introduced. All once the East Coast mainline timetable change has been implemented. Assessments made by LNER and Network Rail have confirmed that LNER services can call at Cleethorpes and Grimsby. However, for LNER trains to serve Market Rasen Station, significant changes to platform length and height are required, in addition to a new foot crossing to allow safe access to platforms. My noble friend, the Minister of State for Rail, will be considering the proposals put forward with final approval subject to funding and a thorough business case process. That was the situation before the general election and is still the case now. The previous Rail Minister talked about an ambition to introduce the service. I'm sure that both she and other honourable members understand that an ambition is not the same as a promise. In the meantime, addressing the performance of rail services in the region in advance of any decision on direct services between London and Cleethorpes and Grimsby will significantly improve journeys and reduce delays. She very effectively painted a picture of the impact it has on rail travellers when that integration between services is not working properly. I'm pleased that TransPennine Trains has improved services significantly over the last year, but it's clear that there is room for improvement. And as she knows, my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State, has wasted no time in holding train operators to account for poor performance. In her first month in the job, she met with the Managing Director of TransPennine Express and Network Rail representatives to demand action. Between the 21st of July and 17th of August, only around half of all trains on this route ran to time, with fewer than 8% arriving within 3 minutes of timetable. During this period, cancellation stood at 3.4%, with an increase attributed to issues with the Kedby swing bridge on the 1st and 5th of August, along with several Network Rail incidents. I'll say more in a moment at how bringing track and train together under Great British Railways can help drive improvements, but they are very much needed. Now, Northern's performance over the last several months has been unacceptable. Between 17th of July and the 21st of August, trains on the Doncaster to Scunthorpe route arrived on time only 78% of the time. Total cancellations were about 4%. Although depending on the day and conditions of travel, passengers may have experienced a better or worse service than this. That's why, in July, the Rail North Partnership, through which my department and the Transport for the North jointly manage Northern's contract, served it with a breach notice. This compels Northern to produce a formal recovery plan, requiring them to explain how they will tackle the underlying issues which are holding back performance, resulting in the current unreliable service. That plan will be scrutinised by my department and by Northern leaders through Transport for the North's Rail North Committee. We will ensure that the needs and expectations of passengers, including in North and North East Lincolnshire, are put at the heart of Northern's recovery and development. I will now address the daily, 5 days a week, Sheffield to Cleethorpes service. Now, I remember when the Brigg line service was on Saturdays only, and I'm probably amongst a select group who's actually ridden on the service, but the honourable member for Brigg and Immingham already knows this because we took that trip together and stopped for a cuppa in Cleethorpes. This service is primarily intended to maintain route knowledge on the Brigg line in case of diversions. Now, whilst I appreciate the appetite for services to spend more time in Grimsby and Cleethorpes, Northern's turnaround at Cleethorpes is necessitated by other demands on the network, including from freight services and crew rostering. Adding an additional service on this route could create clashes and would cost between £400,000 and £900,000 a year, depending on staff and rolling stock demands. Now, naturally, the department requires operators to match their services to demand. This remains low on the existing Sheffield to Cleethorpes services, which only reaches around 30% of their capacity, even during the busiest times. Most of the demand on this service is driven by passengers joining at Worksop and Retford for Sheffield, or by Northern's competitive leisure pricing between Sheffield and Cleethorpes, although TransPennine Trains also offer services over a similar route. Now, demand on the route is also very seasonal. I know from my constituency in Nottingham how much city residents enjoy a trip to the East Coast in the heights of summer, but find it, in just one moment, less appealing on wet and windy days in the winter. I will, of course, give way.
Your point about the small number of passengers on that route, but would the Minister not agree that actually that's partly because it's only a one service a day, and if it were a regular service, even every 3 hours, shall we say, actually, and people knew it was there and could actually spend a day in Cleethorpes, then it would be encourage more passengers onto the route.
The honourable member makes an important point, and certainly one that we would look at. But he does understand, I'm sure, that given the capacity and the other ways in which people can travel, that it is challenging. Indicative modelling of an additional service suggests an industry revenue uplift of around £35,000 a year, though most of this is achieved by improving the service between Worksop and Retford and Sheffield. This would increase Northern's subsidy requirement and therefore raise costs significantly. This money is not available in Northern's current budget. This government has been clear that performance on the railways must improve, and we are committed to delivering a unified and simplified rail system that focuses on improved services for passengers and better value for taxpayers. As she knows, just this week, the House of Commons passed the legislation to bring passenger services back into public ownership. By ending years of fragmentation and waste, we will ensure the railway serves the needs of passengers and the taxpayer rather than lining the pockets of private sector operators. Bringing train operations into public ownership is just the first step in this government's plan to improve the railways for passengers and taxpayers. We'll also bring forward further legislation to create Great British Railways, a new arm's-length body which will act as a directing mind for the railways. This will ensure the highest standards of customer service and operational performance, with a relentless focus on delivering for passengers and freight customers. To achieve our goals, rail must become part of a reliable, efficient, integrated transport network, including for the region that honourable members here are representing. And that's also why improving bus services is a top priority. My right honourable friend, the Secretary of State, has been clear that buses are the lifeblood of our communities, and we haven't discussed them far today, but they can, of course, improve access to education, jobs and leisure opportunities, as well as connecting us with our friends and family. As government strives to kickstart the economy, buses will also be central in addressing regional inequalities and delivering growth. That's why we've set out an action plan to deliver better bus services, grow passenger numbers and drive opportunity to underserved regions. A core part of this plan is passing the Better Buses Bill, which will be introduced in this session. Am I running short of time? But I will cut to the chase. It will give local leaders the tools to deliver better bus services and ensure networks meet the needs of the communities who rely on them. However, I must need to say that, as the Chancellor has clearly set out, this government has inherited an extremely challenging financial situation with a £22 billion public spending gap left by the previous administration in this year alone. And the gap between promised schemes and the money available to deliver them has been abundantly clear. I know it's not the first time these issues have been raised. My honourable friend has made a strong argument on behalf of her constituents. I'd like to reassure her that this government has heard her case clearly and that of other honourable members, and will continue taking action to address the issues debated today. Thank you.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. Many of that opinion say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Order, order,